I have been getting some very nice emails from people on YouTube, and for the past week or so I've been trying to answer some. But something is wrong with the YouTube website, and it's not posting my messages or replies. When I was featured on the YouTube and suddenly started getting more messages than I could handle, I got hundreds of friend invitations, over 400. I couldn't read them all at once. Later, when I went back to look at my friend invitations, when I clicked on it, that page was empty. So YouTube somehow lost my invitations. I hope it didn't look like I just didn't want to be friends. I will say here that I thank all of you who wrote nice things to me. Now this was a 3-generation farm. It was the Dietz farm. That farm was the basic subsistence for the whole family, all generations. Even Grandma and Grandma Boswell, who lived in Manistee, 10 or 11 miles away from the farm, they never visited the farm, but farm produce would find its way to them in Manistee. Great-Grandpa Boswell, he'd sit me on his knee when I was about 5 years old and show me his watch with his and my initials, LB, on the back. He'd tell me someday that'll be mine. And he'd point to his Civil War sword and say that too someday would be mine. Those were great people. I loved them, including Grandpa Dietz. I remember how he'd get a rasp, a heavy file to cut his toenails sitting on the back steps. And sometimes he'd skin his toe a little bit and it would hurt. And you could tell he felt like cussing, but because us kids were there, he wouldn't. Somewhere around Christmas, either Christmas Eve or Christmas Day, the whole family would go to church. It was a Lutheran church, I know that, but I didn't understand it because the services were all in German. And I always had to sit by Grandma, and since I couldn't understand what was being said, Grandma kept me awake by a nudge with the elbow when I started nodding off in sleep. Afterwards, when we'd go home in that big old Studebaker that they had, with us kids, Marion and me, sitting in jump seats up in front of the back seats and back of the high rise of the front seats. And we sat on those jump seats that pulled up out of the floor. When we got home, we'd go to sleep. Us kids would be put to bed, and the old folks would get ready for tackling the tree and its presents and everything the next day. The presents I remember the best were those that Grandma Dietz made. She knit gloves, knit both gloves and mittens. The ones I liked the best were those that she fastened together with a tie string that went up through the sleeves of our jackets, whatever we were wearing, and came out, and there were what we wore on our hands. We couldn't lose them. we couldn't lose them because they were fastened to us. The closest school to where my folks lived on the farm went no further than the 10th grade. My folks wanted to get me more education, so they arranged for me to go and live with Dr. Spencer, the family doctor, and doctors made family visits in those days. You didn't go to the doctor came to you. Well, there was one time when the doctor told me, "You're not going to go to school tomorrow morning. You're going to drive me over to Marysville. I'm going to have to perform a cesarean birth." And he said, "You're going to have to drive me to get there because I'm so sleepy. I'm almost dead on my feet." In the morning, he got us started, and he got in the back seat, got under that bear rug, and I covered him down. And little did he know it, but Big Bear Swamp it had like a little lake in the middle, and there was a peripheral road went all the way around it, and almost straight across from where we would approach that part of the peripheral road was a pretty good sized pond in there, and it was frozen. So in the morning, when we got started, I got to that peripheral road. The road clearers had not yet cleared that peripheral road. Snow was piled high. No way was I going to be able to get through that. So I thought, well, I guess I'll just have to go across the pond. I'm sure it's probably frozen hard enough to take our weight, and so we started across. And as we just nicely got out there onto the ice, I began to hear it creaking. A noise would start from the car on top of the ice, and you could hear it go to shore. Well, this was a little scary. I had no idea how deep that water was in there. I knew that not too long ago, some boys who were reaping ice cakes out of the river had drowned because they had gone through the ice, swept under the ice, and couldn't find their way out again. They drowned under that ice. And I was afraid that was going to happen to me. So all I could do was keep going. Scary? Yes. But I had to do it. So on we went, and I could hear it continue creeping. We made it across with a sigh of relief. I woke the doctor up, and he went in, and I slept while he did his cesarean birth. And by the time we got out, time he was done there and ready to go back home, that peripheral road had been cleared. So I never had to tell him the risk I had taken in going across that Big Bear Swamp. I'm glad I never had to tell him that. Yeah, I'm sure, and remembering back to that incident, I know for sure that that's one of the times my guardian angel was sitting on my shoulder, looking out for little me.
Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to the whole wide world, and may all the coming years be one of happiness and success to all of you.
And you, pal.
Yes, pal, and to you. You better believe it.
Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.